LETTER the 16th of Life in Mexico. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Life in Mexico by Francis Calderon de la Barca. Letter the 16th. Mexico in May. Leave Mexico for Santiago. Coach of Charles X. Mexican travelling. General aspect of the country. Village of Santa Clara. Robber's house. Temples of the Sun and Moon. San Juan. Mexican posada. Schoolhouse. Skulls. Hard fare. Travelling dress. Sopayuca. Military administrador. Santiago. Matadors and picadors. Evening in the country. Dances. Mexican songs. Quempoala. Plaza de Toros. Skill of the horseman. Omatusco. Accident. Tulancingo. Beautiful garden. Mexican dishes. Fruits. Horses. Games of forfeits. Ranchera's dress. Young girls and their admirers. Verses. Knowledge of simple medicine. Indian baths. Hidden treasures. Anecdote. Santiago, May 6th. Before the setting in of the rainy season, we accepted of the invitation of our friends the to visit the different haciendas, as in a short time the roads will become nearly impassable. The country in May is perhaps at its highest beauty, or even a little earlier, as already the great blow of roses is nearly over. Au reste, there are roses all the year round, though more in December than in July. And this, by the way, is rather a source of disappointment to the unwary traveller. He arrives in December and finds the gardens full of flowers. If this be the case in December, says he to himself, what will it be in May? May comes, the roses are over, and the chief flowers in the gardens are dahlias and marigolds, our autumnal flowers. September, and these autumnal flowers still bloom, and with them you have mignonette and roses, and then pinks and jasmine and other flowers. In fact, there seems to be no particular season for anything. The weather at present is neither warm nor cold, but colder here than in Mexico, and when it does not rain it is lovely. Already there has been much rain, and the torrents are so swelled that there was some doubt as to whether our carriages could pass them. Yesterday at 5 in the morning we left Mexico in a coach once the property of Charles X. Sic transit, etc., and a most luxurious travelling carriage is that of his Majesty, entirely covered with gilding, save where the lilies of France surmount the crown, sad emblems of the fallen dynasty, lined with white satin, with violet-coloured binding, the satin cushions most excellently stuffed, large, commodious, and with a movement as soft as that of a gondola. A Frenchman bought it on a speculation, and brought it here for sale. In former days, from its gilded and showy appearance, it would have brought any price, but the taste for gaudy equipages has gone by since the introduction of foreign, and especially of English carriages, and the present proprietor, who bought it for its intrinsic good qualities, paid but a moderate sum for it. In this carriage, drawn by 6 strong horses, with 2 first-rate coachmen, and several outriders well armed, we went along at great speed. The drivers, dressed Mexican fashion, with all their accoutrements smart and new, looked very picturesque. Jackets and trousers of deerskin, and jackets embroidered in green, with hanging silver buttons, the trousers also embroidered and slit up the side of the leg, trimmed with silver buttons, and showing an underpair of unbleached linen; these with the postillion's boots, and great hats with gold rolls, form a dress which would faire fureur if some adventurous Mexican would venture to display it on the streets of London. We left the city by the gate of Guadalupe, and passed by the great cathedral, our road lying over the marshy plains once covered by the waters of Lake Tezcuco. To the east lay the great lake, its broad waters shining like a sheet of molten silver, and the 2 great volcanoes, the rising sun forming a crown of rays on the white brow of Popocatepetl. To describe once for all the general aspect of the country on this side of the valley of Mexico, suffice it to say, that there is a universal air of dreariness, vastness, and desolation. The country is flat, but always enlivened by the surrounding mountains, like an uninteresting painting in a diamond frame, and yet it is not wholly uninteresting. It has a character peculiar to itself. Great plains of maguey, with its huts with uncultivated patches that have once been gardens, still filled with flowers and choked with weeds; the huts themselves generally of mud, yet not unfrequently of solid stone, roofless and windowless, with traces of having been fine buildings in former days. The complete solitude, unbroken except by the passing Indian, certainly as much in a state of savage nature as the lower class of Mexicans were when Cortes first traversed these plains, with the same character, gentle and cowardly, false and cunning, as weak animals are apt to be by nature, and indolent and improvident as men are in a fine climate. Ruins everywhere; here a viceroy's country palace serving as a tavern, where the mules stop to rest, and the drivers to drink pulque; there a whole village crumbling to pieces, roofless houses, broken down walls and arches, an old church, the remains of a convent. For leagues scarcely a tree to be seen; then a clump of the graceful arbol de Peru, or one great cypress; long strings of mules and asses with their drivers; pasture fields with cattle; then again whole tracts of maguey as far as the eye can reach. No roads worthy of the name, but a passage made between fields of maguey, bordered by crumbling down low stone walls, causing a jolting from which not even the easy movement of Charles X's coach can save us. But the horses go at full gallop, accustomed to go through and over everything. The first village we saw was Santa Clara, to our left, lying at the foot of some dark hills, with its white church and flat roofed or no roofed houses. There being no shade, frequently not a tree for leagues, the sun and dust very disagreeable, and became more so as the day advanced. Here it came to pass that, travelling rapidly over the hot and dusty plains, the wheels of our carriage began to smoke. No house was in sight, no water within ken. It was a case of difficulty, when suddenly recollected that not far from thence was an old rancho, a deserted farmhouse at present occupied by robbers, and having ordered the coachman to drive to within a few hundred yards of this house, he sent a servant on horseback with a medio, 4d. to bring some water, which was treating the robbers like honourable men. The men galloped off, and shortly returned with a can full of water, which he carried back when the fire was extinguished. Meanwhile we examined, as well as we could, the external appearance of the robbers' domicile, which was an old half ruined house, standing alone on the plain, with no tree near it. Several men with guns were walking up and down before the house, sporting looking characters, but rather dirty, apparently either waiting for some expected game, or going in search of it. Women with rebosos were carrying water and walking amongst them. There were also a number of dogs. The well armed men who accompanied us, and the name of , so well known in these parts, that once when his carriage was surrounded by robbers, he merely mentioned who he was, and they retreated with many apologies for their mistake, precluded all danger of an attack; but woe to the solitary horseman or the escorted carriage that should pass thereby. Nor indeed are they always in the same mood, for Señor 's houses having been frequently attacked in his absence, and his hacienda at Santiago once stood a regular siege, the robbers being at length repulsed by the bravery of his servants. We set off again au grand galop, drivers and outriders giving, from time to time, the most extraordinary shrieks to encourage the horses and to amuse themselves, wild and shrill enough to frighten any civilized quadruped. The road grew more picturesque as we advanced, and at length our attention was arrested by the sight of the two great pyramids, which rise to the east of the town of San Juan Teotihuacan, which are mentioned by Humboldt, and have excited the curiosity and attention of every succeeding traveller. The huge masses were consecrated to the sun and moon, which in the time of Cortes were there represented by two vast stone idols covered with gold. The conquerors made use of the gold and broke the idols in pieces by order of the first bishop of Mexico. Unfortunately our time was too limited to give them more than a passing observation. fragments of obsidian